Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of this series. Today we're going to continue with the M51 grenade. We're going to be UVing, we're going to be texturing, and we're going to be rendering this very nice prop. So let's get going. So we're back here in Maya, guys, and remember, the first thing you should always do whenever you start your project is set your project. It's very important, especially if you're working in several projects at the same time. It's very, very important that you set the project that you're going to be working on in that specific time. That way, every scene that we save, every image that we use, everything that we're going to be getting inside and outside of Maya, it's going to be located in a very nice folder location, and we can have a very nice organization. So let's open the scene right now, and we're going to start with rendering. And the reason we're going to start with rendering is we want to see how this thing looks on a realistic light setup, right? And this is the model that we have. Everything looks very nice. And yeah, let's build something here very, very easily. Let's start with a... What should we do? Should we do like a traditional like studio photograph? Or should we do a little bit more like an environment? I think an environment is going to look a little bit better. So let's start with a plane. This plane will eventually be a tileable texture that we're going to use to do some like ground stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this scene as... Actually, I'll take that back. We're not going to start with render. We need to start with UVs. That way we can save as many scenes as we want, and all the scenes will have the proper UVs. So I'm going to use the same technique that we use on the Maya Beginners course series to UV this thing, and it's very simple. First, I'm going to delete this layer here, and I'm going to create a new layer with no objects, actually, just a new layer. I'm going to call this layer UV ready, just to keep things organized. It's not necessary, it's just to keep things clean. Now I'm going to select the whole object. I'm going to go into UV, and I'm going to delete the UVs. I don't want any UV to be here with this particular element right now. I want to start fresh, completely clean. We're going to grab everything, and I'm going to say UV, planar mapping, and we're going to do a bounding box, camera-based projection using the keep image with high ratio on, and we're going to go to like a 3/4 view. This is the method that I've used. I know that there's a lot of different ways to do it. Some people like to use like planar mapping or spherical mapping to get other stuff. Personally, this one works just fine for me. The reason why I do the camera-based projections is the following. Sometimes, just quick pro tip here. When you do a planar-based projection, let's say from the Z-axis on this thing, this cube now has UVs, right? Like if we take a look at the UVs right here, we know that this thing has UVs. However, the side faces, as you can see here, especially this one, see how there's no information there? Due to the way that the projection worked, there's no surface information. And even if you were to do like the cuts that we normally do, let's say we cut all the corners here like this, and then we say UV, cut UV edges, and we try to do an unfold. Sometimes, due to the fact that those faces didn't have any surface, the unfold doesn't work. It just doesn't work, and it's very annoying, of course, when that happens. And you can see it here. No, actually, you can't see it here. It's working in this case, but I had that bug happen to me several times where a planar mapping just won't cut it, and that's why I always like to do that way. I can make sure that every single face, no matter where it is, will have at least a little bit of surface area, and that way the UV is gonna work fine. So for this thing right here, this is a very simple thing. I'm actually gonna bevel this thing once more here, just to sharpen that line a little bit. Let's do 2 segments. There we go. That looks better. Whoa, look at that. Oh, that's the bevel, right? Did I select something? No, it seems like I messed up on the last one and I didn't see that. See that? That's just a very simple bevel that I missed. Easy way to fix this, just merge to center all of these 3 points. It might not be completely symmetrical anymore, but it's fine. Now we're gonna go there. Bevel. It's very important that we fix n-gons because otherwise the unfold doesn't work. A little history, and we already have the UVs ready, so I'm just gonna go UV, 3D cut and sew UV tool. We're gonna cut this cap right here, and then I'll probably cut inside this area right about there. I'll probably do 1 cut like here, and finally 1 probably there. And then on the back side of the model, I'm gonna cut all the way through on all of the lines that I just added. So we're gonna have cap, cylinder looking shape, and then cylinder looking shape. We can go UV, UV editor, grab all the UVs. Let's turn this off, and I'm gonna say modify and unfold. And there you go. It's good enough. That it's totally gonna work. There's a little bit of distortion you can see here, but I'm gonna show you a nice little trick inside the substance to make sure that that's not a big deal at all. If you don't have Unfold 3D turned on, because that's sometimes an issue that some people run into, just make sure to go into the plugin manager, look for Unfold, and make sure that the plugin is turned on. I personally have it in Autoload. That way, things just are always on. Another quick tip, now that we're here in Plugin Manager, if you have issues with your Maya taking too long to load, which is very common, that's because Bifrost, Mesh, and Xgen are usually set to auto-load, and those plugins do take a little bit of time to load. So if you turn those off, you should see quite a big improvement. Maya usually takes like 30 seconds to load with those turned on, and without them it's about 10 seconds. So it speeds up the process. And there we go. This guy has the UVs ready, so I'm just going to select the object, turn this layer off, and that way I know which pieces I have ready and which ones I do not. Now for this one right here, it's very, very simple cut. It's a cylindrical shape. Anytime you have a cylindrical shape, this is important. Make sure that you have a cap, and then as much as the distance of the cylindrical shape in a single piece as possible. Sometimes that's not achievable because you need to like do a couple of extra cuts here and there. But as long as you can have like a long line going across the element, you're gonna have a very nice flat surface. So for this one, I'm gonna go UV, 3D cut and sew UV edges. I'm gonna do cap, and then one line across, usually the line that's hidden. We could even go to like an inner line back here so that we don't see it when we see the ring from the front. And the test that we're gonna have is right here. When we unfold this thing, look at that beautiful line. That's what we want. That's perfect. Like this guy is completely perfect. So there we go. This guy going here, and there we go. Let's go for the pin, which is very similar, same principle. We're just gonna go UV, 3D cut and sew UV tool. We're gonna go cap, and we're gonna select the edge that's the most hidden, which in this case I would say is this one. It's the one that we see the least. And we go UV editor, and we just unfold. I usually like to have this thing anchored here. I don't know why Maya sometimes pops it out, but it's fine. Right click, add selected objects. There we go. We can do the cable as well. Very simple. Same. It's the exact same process. I actually didn't see this thing. It's a little bit weird. So let me see if I can fix this. The way we can fix this is we can just like give it a little bit more volume, and then just rotate it a little bit so that we don't have such a weird bend right there. I mean, it's fine. It looks like a bend, but the least amount of distortion, the better. So UV, 3D cut, we're gonna cut right here and on the other cap. And then the line that we see the least, it's probably gonna be down here. No, it's probably gonna be this one right here. So we're gonna see, see that's the problem. This is a very complex shape because it has things going all the way through the different sides. So I'm gonna go down. That way we are gonna see it a little bit here, but from the front it's not gonna be as visible. Now we need to again make sure that this looks as nice as possible. Perfect. We are very lucky. It's not luck, it's a skill we've learned. We know how to do things so that we can get things to work nicely. Now this one's a little bit tricky. Why? Because it's hollow, right? Remember we made this thing completely hollow. I mean, if we wanted to make this a watertight, one very easy option would be to just like grab this edge right here and this inner edge right here and bridge. But I don't think it's necessary. I think it's fine like this. But it is a little bit more complex. It's a relatively complex shape. So I'm going to show you a nice little trick here with UVs. I'm going to grab all the faces that are on the cap. I'm going to go down here. I'm just going to grab all the faces that are down there. See? All of those guys. And I'm going to go UV, planar mapping, and I'm going to hit a Y, hit apply. So that's pretty much going to cut all the edges there. And the reason why I used a planar mapping instead of just selecting is because, as you can see, the geometry here is not in a perfect loop. So selecting it will take a little bit longer. I mean, it's not the end of the day, but it will take a little bit longer. And I can do the same thing here. Like I can grab all of these faces of this like element here, check which axis this is, which is the X axis, and hit apply. And it's pretty much like using the cut tool to do that element right there. I'll probably do the same thing for the upper faces, to be honest. So I'm gonna select all of this like upper faces and then delete all of those. See that? Until we hit the little cylinder here. I am gonna take this one though, the last little element right there, like this, There we go. Make sure that we're not selecting anything else. And we're going to do y-axis, hit apply. That's like another box right there. And now for the cylinder, to be honest, it's a little bit easier if we just like get it out of the main shape of the object. So I'm going to go UV, 3D cut and show UV tools. And I'm just going to follow this line right here down onto this area right here and just like divide this. That way the cylinder is a separate piece on the UVs. And it's way easier to just do the same trick that we did before. Cap, and then across, where? Hidden area, preferably. So we're gonna go down here, and there we go. Now we're just missing this front face and this like cone shapes, right? And again, the easiest thing would be to find like this corner right here, which we can use or we can mask with dust or rust or grime or something, and that way the seam is not gonna be as visible. So double click there, so that way we're gonna have like the side face, front area, bottom face, upper face. It's kind of like doing a cube. Some people might say, hey, why not just like what's the word? Sew a couple of these edges so that you have like a cross shape, like kind of like what you get when you have a cube. When we have a cube and we take a look at the UVs of the cube, this sort of like T shape. It's fine. I mean, if you want to like combine a couple of these areas to generate like a longer area, that's fine. But to be honest, I think this is gonna work just fine. If we go here and hit unfold, you can see that we have all of these pieces, right? So, of course, right now the scale is not right. It's not on the proper scale. But once we do the layout, this is just gonna be fine. So, I usually whenever I have the choice to either go a simple way or a more technical way, I of course try to choose a simple one. The only reason why I would choose a more technical approach is if we're doing a project that requires very nice precision, like a very tight performance budget, like very few UV cuts, very few triangles, very few polygons. Like if you're doing some sort of like AR thing or VR thing or for mobile, then you definitely want to make sure that you are having or taking as much care as possible. For this asset, which is supposed to be like a commercial or film asset, it's completely fine. We're actually going to do 4K textures, so I'm not worried about performance because we're going to be doing R0 renders. So yeah, that's it for this one. So grab this guy, right click, and I'm going to say add selected objects. And it's just this one missing. Now this one, it's actually more simple than it looks. I'm just going to go number 1 to go into the normal mode. And we're going to say mesh tools, insert edge loop, no, sorry, UV, 3D cut, and so UV edge loop, and we're going to go all the way through the border. Just like this. And since I know that we did this with a plane in the past video, if you haven't seen the past video, go back, check it out. There's some very cool stuff there in regards to modeling. But I know that I did this as a plane, so it should be fairly easy to just follow the line, like it shouldn't be that many clicks. And we're gonna be able to grab the whole border here. Now, quick tip: whenever you have very like 90-degree sharp lines like this, guys, I actually recommend to cut those so that we have like little flaps on the side. Otherwise, when you unfold, things get a little bit wonky there, and you're gonna get a little bit of deformation. So, all the places where I see like a 90-degree bend or like a very sharp bend like this one, I might consider just adding a couple of cuts there. Yes, you will see the seam, like we'll have to cover it up or do some things on the texture side of things, but it's gonna be way nicer than what we have here. There we go. Now, there are some positive and negative shapes here. So for instance, this holes right here, we definitely need to cut, and we're gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna like grab this edge, like this corners right here. Let's do the inner ones because those are the ones that are hidden, and we're gonna say UV, cut UV edges, and then we can go back to UV, 3D cut, and you're gonna see those there. There we go. Just missing that one. That way, this little hole is gonna be again like we're gonna get a nice fold over there. So this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy, and back here, all of these areas we're gonna be cutting as well. There we go. This shape is actually tricky as well because this is a shape that has a lot of things going on, right? So there's a lot of like holes in there, and whenever you have holes, you need to be very careful on how you unfold things. So the easiest way is to think about this as a sort of like a flat plane, right? So I want all of this area to be just like one flat plane. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna cut this thing from the main shape, like you're seeing there, like that line right there, this line right here, and then continue all the way around. So yes, we're gonna have a seam line there, but that will allow me to cut this thing out of the rest of the elements. I'm also gonna cut this right here and right here, so that all of this unfolds nicely. And then we need to continue. I'll probably what's the best way to approach this, because we need to complete the loop here. I'll probably go to the corner here, to be honest, like this. Yeah, it's an ugly cut, but again, I'm gonna show you a technique in Substance that allows us to pretty much ignore that. Now this inside part is also, or should also be cut, so I'm gonna go here. Actually, I don't want to go all the way there. Let's go here, that line, this line, and let's do another cut right there. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. So this line, this one right here, and this one. And then I'm just gonna go in one line and then cut there. Go in one line and cut there. And now, if my calculations are correct, I think the only one we need is this one right here. So this should unfold nicely. Again, how are we gonna know if this thing actually works? By trying it. So if we unfold this, and you see like weird areas or weird like cuts, then we know that something's wrong. But no, look at this. This looks very nice. We have all of this like extra pieces, but that's fine. If we were to turn on the resolution here, this little checker pattern, and we take a look at how the checker pattern looks on this thing, you're gonna see that overall it looks fairly good. There's a little bit of distortion right about here. We could add a couple more cuts. Usually when you have distortion, the best way to solve it is by adding more cuts to the UV. So if I were to like cut right here, for instance, going all the way through, and probably going here as well, and we unfold, you can see that the distortion is gone. However, we're gonna have a seam. So if you don't feel confident covering the seams, I would go for distortion rather than seams. But again, I'm gonna show you a nice little trick inside of Substance to make sure that that works. Very nice. So yeah, that's it, right? I think those are all the pieces. Yep, all the pieces are done. See, very simple. What, 15 minutes? That's it, 15 minutes and we have all the UVs ready. Now I'm gonna show you one of the best tricks inside of Maya for laying out all of these UVs. First, I'm gonna make sure that all of the pieces are frozen in their transformations. I do not want any scale. Scale will mess up what I'm about to do. And I'm gonna go into Modify, Layout, and I'm gonna explain to you a little bit more about the Layout tool, because Layout tool it's great. It's amazing. It has some very cool things. First things first, I'm gonna select the size at which I want to pack, which is gonna be 4K. And I'm gonna say pack together. I want all of these islands to be in the same single island. Shell pre-rotation, this is important. I'm actually gonna say horizontal. I want to make sure that most of the islands, especially the islands that are very straight, like cables and stuff, I want most of them to be following a horizontal approach, right? Like I want them to be laying flat. I'm gonna translate shells. I'm gonna preserve the 3D ratios. This is very important. I don't want any of these islands to be bigger than the other ones. They should be proportional to the size of the object that we have here inside of Maya. And then down here, I'm just gonna change this to 4K. Shell padding is the distance in pixels that I want between each island. I usually recommend 4 to avoid any sort of bleeding. And tile padding is the distance that should be between each tile. Again, I recommend 4. And I'm gonna hit apply. And if everything is working nice, after unfold us a little bit of thinking, like what it's doing right here, of course, the more islands you have, the longer this is gonna take. I've had some models that took like 30 minutes to sort. Look at this. We have a very, very nice thing here. Now, if we turn on the resolution here, the checker pattern, what you should see is that every single object on or every single part of your object should have the same resolution, right? So the cables, the ring, the body of the grenade, like all of them share pretty much the same proportion as everything else. You can see that, yeah, there's a couple of spaces here and there. We could modify some areas and make sure that things look a little bit nicer. But I think we're in a very good position. This is a perfectly workable element. If I were to take all of these objects and check the textile resolution, let's check real quick here on the transform. I'm going to say that we're going to be using a 4K map, 4096. We have 10 points of textile resolution, so 10 pixels per unit. That's very good. That's a good number. Very good. So grab all of these things, phrase transformation again. I'm gonna save the scene because now this M51 grenade is the new updated scene. And I'm gonna create a new scene, file, new scene. I'm gonna say, don't save the scene because I already saved. I'm gonna say file, import, and we're gonna import the grenade into this scene. So it's the same grenade that we had with UVs and everything. Everything should be working just fine, but we're in a new scene. And I'm gonna save this new scene, file, save scene as, and let's call this a grenade M51. Let's keep everything consistent. Grenade render. There we go. So now, as I was doing at the beginning of the video, let's go for a plane. We're gonna call this ground plane. There we go. Let's get our grenade. Let's do a little bit of a render test just to see how things are looking. So one of the techniques that we're gonna be using, it's a very famous technique. It's called image-based lighting. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be using an HDR from this site called HDR Haven, and we're going to use this HDR to get light information into the scene. So it's going to look like the object is inside that scene, right? So I'm going to go for outdoors, and let's go for something interesting. I'm thinking about like an abandoned grenade. Like this one looks good. Like the jungle looks good. This ruins also look good. These rocks look good. I like this one. This one looks really nice. I like the high contrast on the light and the long shadows. I think those are gonna look good. 2K is just fine. Some people like to go like really extreme for what we're doing. 2K is extremely or it's completely fine. I'm gonna copy this thing and I'm gonna bring it into our project. Very important. Every single time you're using images, you will place them on the source images folder of your project. This one I named Nexttut Live, and this is what we have, right? So there we go. Now inside of here of Maya, we need to make sure that Arnold is turned on. Again, if you don't have this turned on, go into Settings, Preferences, Plugin Manager, and you're gonna look for MTOA, which is Maya to Arnold. It's the plugin that it's in charge of the whole communication, and make sure it's loaded. You can see that we have a lot of cameras here. That's weird. So I'm just gonna delete them. We don't need them. Probably came from the other scene. And yeah, so we're gonna go Arnold lights. I'm gonna add a Skydome light, and on the Skydome light, Control A, go into the attributes editor right here, and on the color, I'm just gonna select a file, and we're gonna connect this that we just downloaded right here. Now the cool thing about this is wherever you see that the light is, that's where the light direction is gonna be coming from. So we can turn this thing around actually, and now we're gonna have a light going in this direction. Now I'm gonna grab the grenade. I'm gonna press number 3 to go into smooth mode. I'm gonna talk about that soon because we're gonna be doing some. We have to do something about the textures. I'm just gonna bring this down a little bit like this, and now let's go to the rendering section. I'm gonna go here to my create camera. I'm gonna say panels, look through selected, zoom out. I'm gonna turn this thing, which is the resolution gate. And this is what we're going to be rendering. Whatever is inside of this square is what we're going to be seeing on the actual render. So right now we don't have any sort of like material, right? We're just using the Lambert. I do want to assign a material to the grenade. So I'm going to grab the whole thing, right click, and I'm going to say assign new material. I'm going to go to Arnold, and I'm going to call this material. It's going to be an AI standard surface. Just click there. I'm going to call this material M, as in a material, M51. Grenade. So I know that this material belongs to the M51 grenade. Now, just for pre-visualization purposes, I'm gonna select like a very light green, like sort of a greenish tone, just to get an idea of how this thing is gonna look. We're not actually gonna use this material, of course. It's just a preview. I'm gonna go Arnold and hit render. So now Arnold's gonna translate the scene. It's gonna convert the HDR into a .text file, which is the types of files that Arnold uses for the rendering. And if we wait just a couple of more seconds, we should have our render. There we go, right there. So as you can see, very nice shadow there. A little bit overexposed for the image. It's not the end of the world, but it's getting there. You can see that right now I'm using CPU to render my scene. I'm actually gonna make a quick change here. I'm gonna go into my options, and if you're using Arnold Renderer, especially in the newer versions, I'm in Maya 2022, you can change this to GPU, and it's gonna be slightly faster, especially if you have a good GPU. I have a 1080, so it really works. It's gonna be noisier. I'll teach you how to clean that noise later, But as you can see, it's really fast. Like very quickly you get like the way things are gonna look. So as you can see, this is looking nice. Again, this plane we're gonna change into a an actual texture, like a tileable texture, so that things look nicer. And we're gonna add some more stuff later on. So one of the things that I want to do now is I want to bring this grenade into Substance. Okay. Now, if you see, one of the important things about this grenade is that we press number 3 to get it into this smooth mode. Substance does not have a smooth mode. Therefore, if we were to bring this object into Substance, it would actually import in this way. And that could mess up our textures. So I'm going to do something that's going to be a little bit heavy, but should help us out. And that's I'm going to do a permanent smooth. So I'm going to go mesh. I'm going to say smooth. Now what this just did, as you can see, is it actually smoothed out the whole thing. And now we have like a lot more polygons, of course, but things look way smoother. This could mess up the UVs slightly. So if I were to check the UVs here, especially on the seams, sometimes, not always, the seams will get like stretched out in weird ways. In this particular case, I'm not seeing that problem. So I think we're fine. But just keep in mind, if that happens to you, if your seams like started looking weird or something, just do another unfold and another layout and you should be fine. But in this case, things seem to be working just fine. This is going to be heavier. We're not like out of normal things. Like if I were to go display, heads up display, and say poly count, we're at 35,000 triangles. It's fine. For cinematic purposes, it's fine. And now this is what I'm going to export. So I'm going to say File, Export Selection, and I personally like to export on FBX. FBX is also another plugin that you need to activate. So if you haven't activated, make sure you do. I'm going to go into the Assets folder of my project, and I'm going to create a new folder called M51 Grenade. And anything that has to do with the grenade is going to be on this. It's like my general purpose folder for things. And this is going to be M51. Let's call this model. And there we go. So now we're going to jump into Substance Painter. Hopefully you guys know about Substance Painter. If you don't, most of the courses that I've taught here with Nexttut have Substance Painter in one way or another. The Intro to Maya has a little bit of Substance Painter. The, what's the word? The ZBrush for beginners also has that. The Daemon character, of course, has it. The Stylized character also has it. So all of these courses have a little bit of Substance Painter. Hopefully you can get one of those and learn a little bit more in depth. So I'm gonna be going here into File, New. I am gonna go for 4K, but I'm gonna work with 2K first, and then later on we're gonna export higher. Now I'm gonna go to the templates. This is very important, and we can already select the template that we're gonna be using, which is this Arnold. Does it have it here? No, it seems like it does not. Okay, if it doesn't have the Arnold one that we're gonna be using, that's fine. We're just gonna use Metallic Roughness from Algorithmic. 2K, DirectX is fine for now, and we're just gonna select from our assets folder. There we go. The M51 model. There we go. Now, for some of you that already know, Substance works with generators and with masks, and it needs to have certain information about the model. And even though we don't have a high poly to do bakes, we actually don't need it right now, we can still get information from those maps. So I'm gonna go into Texture Set Settings, Bake Mesh Maps, and I'm gonna bake this at 2K. And I'm just going to leave everything as is. And you're going to see that we're going to get this very nice bakes, especially ambient occlusion, curvature, precision, and thickness. All of those are going to work just fine. And now we're going to be able to work with the tools that we have inside here of inside of Substance Painter. Now, very important. Remember the last time we talked about this. One of the key features for us as artists is reference. I use this app, PureRef. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this one before. It's free. You can download it from Google. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for some reference about the M51 grenade. I want to see how it looks, what kind of colors it has, etc., etc., etc. So let's go here, M51 grenade. Wait, is it not M51? I'm pretty sure it was M51. Is it M26? Huh, seems like it was M26 and I've been doing the wrong name. Maybe one military guy is going to correct me. I apologize. I've never been in the army, so I don't know. This is probably the best reference that we can get. I don't think there's any other that we can match it. It's just like a very realistic grenade. So we're gonna work with this. I'm just gonna move this to the other side right here, and we're gonna jump into Substance Painter. So the way I like to work is I like to first check how many materials we actually have. And from what I can see here, it's 3 materials. We have the material for this like body, which is like galvanized steel or aluminum or something. We have this metal right here, which to me it seems it's the same one as this one. It's just on a different roughness. This one seems a little bit cleaner, and this one's a little bit rougher. And then just like a steel element for like the paints and stuff. So it's probably going to be 3 materials. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here into substance. We're going to go into a metal material first. Let's do like this iron raw. I really like the iron raw material. As you can see, it gives us this very nice effect. So this is going to be the base for both of these elements, the handle and the body of the grenade, because beneath the paint coat that it has, there should be metal, right? So this one I'm going to control G. I'm going to call this green metal paint. I'm going to right click, add black mask, going to number 4 on my keyboard and select object. And we're going to fill the parts that are going to be using this, which are all of this. This object option. There we go. There we go. Perfect. So that's the first material. The second, and I have here one, it's iron galvanized. So let's do the iron galvanized right here. I am going to control G as well. Right click, black mask, number 4. And we're going to select this thing so that all of those areas have this galvanized sort of look to it. So I'm going to call this galvanized metal. And finally, we're going to have just like a normal steel. So let's do like this, just iron raw, just a raw iron. No, we're iron pure. Let's go for a pure iron. There we go. Black mask, and we're going to have the ring and the pin and this cable right here. So as you can see, even though it looks like the exact same thing, there's actually like small variance things that are going to play an important role on how everything looks. I'm also going to control G this. I actually did this on the mask, so let's remove the mask, add the mask here on the folder. I like working with folders, and then on the mask, we're just going to select this guy and this guy and this guy. There we go. Go back to number 1. Now, as you can see, if we go into the green metal paint, you're going to see that here on the Sims, we see that element right there. And one of the reasons why we have that is because this iron raw damage actually is adding some height information. If I get rid of the height information, you can see that that completely gets out, right? And I think I don't want the height. Like I don't want this thing to modify my model. My model is already looking good, so I just want the texture. But we still have the seam. See that? You can still tell that there's a little bend there. It's not super visible. Like if you were to see this thing from afar, like you wouldn't even notice. But if we want to be super OCD about this, we can, of course, change that. And the way to change it is actually very easy. I'm going to go here into the projection options of the material, and we're going to change the UV projection to triplanar projection. And what this will do is it will actually project the texture in 3 different ways, like front, top, and side. And most of the seams are just going to be gone. There might be a little bit of blurriness, especially where textures connect, like right about here. But as you can see, it's barely visible. And that's just going to solve our issue. Now, on top of this metal, on top of the metal material, we would get like a paint, right? So I'm going to use this plastic matte, and I'm just going to drop it right here. I'm going to call this military green. And I'm going to go into the base color. And one of the cool things that I love about Substance is that you can actually take the sample thing, go into your image, and grab the exact color that we have on the grenade, which is this one right here. And look at that. That's the exact color. I'm not joking. That's the one that we are looking for. Now, as we mentioned, this part right here seems to be of a slightly shinier material. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to add a black mask here. Just select the body of the grenade. Duplicate the object, duplicate that layer. Change the color so that this is hidden now. There we go. And now on this one, I'm going to select this other part. That way I can just go here and I'm just going to modify the roughness and bring it lower so that this thing shines a little bit more than the body, right? So lower roughness, same exact color, which I also think I'm going to change just to give a little bit more variance. Let's make it like a little bit darker. Something like that. There we go. That looks good. So that's it for the basic shape. Now I'm gonna jump onto the galvanized metal, and one thing that I noticed is that if we compare the images, the size of the galvanization compared to what we have right now, it's completely off, right? Like it's not what we're going for. So what can we do? We can go here to the material, and most of the materials have this scale property, which I can change and make this look smaller. How small? Well, depending on my reference, that seems about right. Finally, I'm gonna go into the first folder, which is just the iron ring, let's call this. And the roughness is a little bit too low, so it's way too shiny. It should be a little bit duller. So I'm gonna make this a little bit duller, and I'm also gonna make it a little bit darker. So let's bring it down. There we go. That looks a lot better. That way we have a nice like contrast here. I also think if you take a look at the reference, the galvanized metal is a little bit greenish and it's a little bit darker. So I'm gonna go back into the galvanized metal, bring the color down, and I'm gonna change the hue so it goes into like the green hues, and add just a little bit of green, just something, just a tad bit there. Not much. I actually think that's way too much. So something very, very subtle, just so that we get the little bit of the effect there. And there we go. So we have all the basic elements working very, very nicely. So what we're going to do now is I'm actually going to start adding some of the details. I do think that the color here is a little bit too light. So let's make this just a tad bit darker. And just a tad bit, no, not greener. I think that like brownish, yellowish is fine. So we know that we have this iron raw damage beneath the element, and I want to uncover a little bit of that element by adding some damage to this whole thing. So we're just going to go here, I'm going to add a generator, and I'm going to select the metal edgeware, which is a very traditional generator that we use. I'm going to invert it, of course, and as you can see, we're going to get this very, very nice detail all around the thing. So the borders are going to get more of that detail, and the rest of the elements is going to be a little bit less. Now, one of the cool things I like about this is we can actually add a paint layer, and we can paint even more damage in certain areas. So if I go down here into my brush section, I can do this like dots erased, or probably not, probably like dirt spots, and I can remove with black, like paint out some of the details, so it's not completely like damage everywhere. Or I can paint in a couple of details as well. So for instance, we have this Kyle's splatter brush. It's gonna add a couple of like little dots here and there, which make it look a little bit more interesting, right? And then if we want, like this is a layer, so at the end of the day, if we want to reduce that a little bit, we can just like bring that down, and we're gonna get a nice effect there. I'm gonna do the same thing for the handles. I'm gonna go here, add a generator. We're gonna add a metal edgeware, and that's gonna break it up a little bit, which in this case looks pretty nice. I think that's a good compromise. So yeah, that's a very, very good approach here. Now I can see here in that reference that up here there's a little bit more like scratches going on. So I'm gonna add a paint layer again, and using one of these brushes like the what's this, Kyle's Real Watercolor. No, let's go for like a traditional dirt. I'm just gonna, as you can see, add a little bit of dirt on this, on the brush. It should be white, because we want to, why am I painting there? Oh yeah, right, because this is on top of that. So I think we need to duplicate this iron raw. I'm just gonna have one more copy here. There we go. So now the metal edgeware, we're just gonna invert. There we go. That's why, because we need one metal underneath the main body of the grenade and one metal underneath the handle thing of the grenade. So here now we can actually like add this sort of like damage on specific areas, and look how nice this whole thing is beginning to look. So pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. Now let's add a little bit of a general feel to the whole thing. So one thing that happens to metal is it rusts, right? So I'm gonna go down here to my materials, and I'm gonna select the rust material, bring it all the way to the top, and on top of all of the layers, all of the paint layers, the metal layers, the galvanized, everything, I'm just gonna add another generator, and we're gonna select a dirt generator. Of course, this on a black mask. So we're gonna add a black mask, and then we're gonna add the generator, and the generator is gonna be a dirt generator. So the only thing I don't like about this is, as you can see, it's actually using the Ambient Occlusion Map to add dirt on places where things collide with each other, like you're seeing here, like underneath the ring and stuff. You can actually change that by going down here onto the Ambient Occlusion. If you eliminate the Ambient Occlusion Map, or actually not eliminate it, but I want to get rid here with the grunge amount. Let's reduce the grunge amount. The dirt level as well. Yeah, actually I do like a little bit more grunge, but I'm just gonna bring the whole thing down like this. Like, I don't mind a little bit of rust here and there, but sometimes it gets like way too like overdone. I am gonna change this to an overlay. I really like the rust with overlay because it actually adds a little bit more depth and not just like a layer on top. And then I'm also gonna add a paint layer to manually add a little bit more rust in certain areas that I might want. Usually rust will accumulate on areas that are that hold moisture. So if you have an area that's gonna be really close to the ground, or things that like all of those inside areas, it would be very common to get those sort of stuff over there. So just keep that in mind. So for instance, like all around there, we can definitely use our brush to very softly add a little bit more extra rust in there, because I would expect to have a little bit extra rust on those particular areas. And this is where the artistic hand comes into play, right? Because you are gonna choose where you want this sort of like effects to go, how wetter or how old you want things to look, and depending on that sort of thing, you're gonna get different results. So that's it's very important that you understand this. For instance, maybe I want just a little bit of rust on this side of the grenade. Why? It just got accumulated there, so you're gonna have a little bit of an extra element there, maybe over here. Well, a little bit. But see how I add and remove some of the elements? It's very important that we don't just like overdo it. We want things to look accidental, right? Like we don't want things to look like we've decided exactly where everything should be. I do think that the main paint is a little bit too glossy, so I'm gonna push this up. Oh, I think it's because of this one, right? Yeah. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna multiply this and then invert. Or actually, let's keep normal. We could have several layer or paint layers. There we go. It's a little bit closer. That's looking good. This paint layer I'm also gonna make softer, just not as much. And there we go. Now we need to add the text, and for this we're gonna be using, I don't remember if we've had a text tool here inside of, I believe we did. Let me just double check here real quick. Remember, we're recording this live, so let's see if there's a text tool. There it is. Is it what I think it is? No, it seems to, I mean, we have some alphas that have the text, which could work. I can show you how to do that. Yeah, it's the text here. So now we're gonna have to do it traditionally. That's fine. I'm just gonna go into Photoshop real quick. I know that ZBrush now does have a I know that ZBrush now does have a text tool, but I don't think or do we have it? I'm just gonna do it traditional. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna create an alpha, and then I'm just gonna paste the alpha here. If we take a look at the grenade, it says grenade frag. I'm not sure what it says there. Frag. Let me check. So M51, or let's see, World War II grenade. Let's look up what it says. Let's see if we can find what it says right here. Army lot, okay, that's something that we can add. But yeah, like I don't see. Oh, there we go. Frag. No, that's a 3D model. Frag. I'm just gonna wing it then. So here inside the Photoshop, I'm gonna create a new file. Let's do a 2K is fine, and just make sure that the background is black. And on a new layer, I'm gonna write grenade, and then I'm gonna say it's frag. It's all caps, so it's gonna be grenade. Let's make sure all of this is center. Frag dot, let's call this AMM lot, and then underneath it's like a serial number, which is 5-69, and then it says comp. I'm just gonna say comp A. Now I'm just gonna grab this whole thing, Control T, just make this way bigger. I'm gonna actually give one space in between them. You're gonna see why in just a second. So a little bit more space here, and we of course need to select some sort of like more traditional army font. We could even download a font, to be honest. I'm not sure if there's like specific font that the army uses, but I would think that like just traditional. It must be a sans serif, so without the little like tails. Yeah, something like this, right? Like very army-esque, right? Not a lot of information. This one's a little bit more like written, but I'm gonna go with a more traditional look. So I'm gonna save this as a JPEG inside of my images folder in this case, or it could be the assets folder as well. Let's call this inscription. There we go. Now, if we go here to our project, and we go into the assets, we can drag and drop this square thing into Substance, into our shelf, and we're gonna define this as an alpha, very important. And I'm gonna say that I want this to be saved onto the project. So anytime I open this grenade, which by the way we haven't saved, so let's save real quick. I'm gonna save on the same asset folder. So in here, I'm just gonna say M51 grenade textures. So anytime I open this project in any computer, I'm gonna have this this element right here. Now, some of you might be wondering, how are we gonna place these things inside of the grenade there, right? It's gonna be a little bit difficult. Well, not that difficult. I'm gonna go on top of this element. So I'm gonna create a fill layer, and I'm gonna sample the yellow color from the words, which is this one. It's gonna be a little bit rougher. It's like a more matte finish to the paint. And I'm gonna say this is gonna be my paint text. Right click, black mask, and I'm gonna press F1. F1 will allow me to see my 3D view, but also my 2D view. And as you can see, I can very easily tell where this thing is gonna be. And as you can see, it's gonna be right here. So I know because of the ambient occlusion and of the rust that we have here with the handle, this is where we have to have our letters, right? So what I'm gonna do now is I am gonna go into my number 3 mode, which is projection mode, and I'm gonna drag and drop this into my grayscale tag here. So now it's just a matter of framing where I want this grenade thing to be, which would be, I would say, right about there. And if I start drawing, as you can see, we're gonna have our text right there. All of the text is gonna be there. I think this is a little bit too big, so I'm gonna go way closer. So right about there. Let's make the brush bigger. We have grenade. We have fragmentation, army lot. And then this 5-6 company, it's gonna be down here. There we go. We can go back to our number 1 mode, which is paint mode, and that's it. It's just the text projected onto the object. The only issue here is that since our UV is a little bit skewed or distorted, you can see that the words here also look a little bit distorted. So I'm actually gonna go back here, and instead of projecting here, I'm gonna go back to my number 3. I'm gonna try and project them right here. That way we have a little bit more control over the text. So there we go. See how Substance automatically bends the words so that it fits properly here on the grenade. So I think this is gonna look way better. We're gonna have a little bit of distortion right there. So I'm actually gonna let's find like the exact way we want to project this, which will be something like this. I actually do like the grenade work there. And then here, very carefully, whoop, let's try and find like the flat area right here. There we go, that looks better. A little bit distorted there, but that's, I think it's fine. And then the company is gonna be like down here. There we go. Go back to number 1 and look at that. Very cool. Now I'm actually gonna make this a little bit brighter just so that we can see it better. And I'm gonna go into the mask here. I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna say add generator, and we're gonna add a dirt generator. And then we're gonna multiply this generator by the mask that we painted so that we have this like faded letters. And we can change how much damage we want on the letters, which something like that I think works just fine. And there we go. We have our textures ready. So I'm gonna save this real quick. How are we doing on time? Thank you, by the way, for hanging for so long. I know 1 hour lectures are a little bit difficult sometimes, but hopefully you're learning a lot from this. So let's get going. I'm just gonna continue with this. I'm gonna say file, and we're gonna export the textures. We're gonna export them to our project. So directly here on our project, source images. I'm gonna create a new folder here because we're gonna have a lot of projects, hopefully. So let's call this M51 grenade. That way we keep everything organized. And I'm actually gonna export them as a JPEGs, and we're gonna export them. Now this is very important. We're gonna export them as Arnold AI standard elements. And here's where I'm actually going to change this to 4K. So all of the textures that I just painted are going to be exported at 4K. So we're going to have very, very nice textures that we're going to be able to see inside of Maya. Let's wait here a little bit. You can see all of them are here. We open the output directory. The only one that we're not going to use is a hide map. I'm actually going to delete it right now. And we have our base color, our metalness, our normal, and our roughness. So let's go back into Maya. I'm going to save this real quick and close it. Let's save. Let's go back into Maya and connect the textures. Some of you should be experienced with the connection of the textures. It's actually very easy. I'm gonna go into the hypershade here, and the material that we have, I'm just gonna click this 2 arrows, which is input and output connections, and we're gonna start importing our files. So on the base color here, I'm gonna connect a file node, and we're gonna be connecting, of course, the base color of our grenade. Simple as that. Then I'm gonna press tab. I'm gonna load in another file texture. So I'm just gonna write file. This texture right here. And this one is gonna be the metalness. And the out color, very important. The out color is what we need to connect into the metalness. But the issue here, and it's very common, is that the object here. This is a 3 float value element. It has 3 channels, RGMV, and metalness it's only 1 value. So one thing that we can do is we can just connect the R button to the metalness. And very important, this map, we need to change the color space to raw, and we need to turn on alpha is luminance. It's just 2 settings that you need to do to make sure that the color looks exactly like what we have in Substance. And we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna add another file texture. This is gonna be the roughness, and we have the exact same issue that we had with the other one. We're going to connect the R color of the roughness into the specular roughness. We're also going to change this to raw. And we're also going to turn on alpha is luminance. So this thing looks as it should. You can see there how the rust is very, very matte. And then everything else is shining the way it should, like the ring and stuff. And finally, the normal map. So for this one, I'm going to go all the way down into the geometry tab. Go into the bump mapping. Click here. I'm going to say file. And we're gonna add the file node here, which is a normal map. Open. The normal is gonna be changed to tangent space normal. Sometimes the normal is inverted. I'm gonna see that on the render in just a second. If that's the case, then we need to change something. And the normal, you also wanna have this as raw. You can see now the colors are working properly. So I'm just gonna lower that. Save. All of this was done on the material that we've already set on the thing. So if I go to my camera, panels, look through selected, and I were to go to Arnold and render this, I would expect to see the render in just a second. So it needs to convert the textures, very, very common. These are 4K textures, so it might be a little bit tougher, but look at this beautiful thing. Great. It's there. It's exactly what we're going for. So I think we're in a very, very good position. Let's continue. So now we need to think about composition, right? Like I want to make this into a nice composition, into a nice element. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go into the camera here, and I am going to say Skydome light. And I'm going to turn the visibility on the camera off because I don't want to see. Eventually, I'll add like another image and blur it out or something. I don't want anything there. I'm just going to stop this right there. And now let's add a couple more grenades. Like, there's no reason why we can't have a little bit more fun here. So let's have this grenade, and let's have like another grenade like falling on the floor. Maybe it rolled, and it's just a matter of making sure it makes sense where it's kind of like standing, like here. Even a little bit of overlap is fine. Let's move this to the side. I'm gonna change rotation to world rotation so that we can move this like this. And let's grab the first group again, Control D. And maybe this one's just gonna be, we have like 3 grenades. Like, let's have this one like looking to the other side like this. So we have like a bunch of grenades. Maybe this one is even like just like something like that, right? And then we have like a little bit of a grenade bundle. So I'm gonna grab the camera again, panels, look through selected, and I want to have like an upper view of this thing. That way we can avoid having to think about the background, and we only focus on the grenades, and we just need to have a little bit of a ground here, but we're gonna be talking about that shortly. So let's close these things, and if we render this, look at this. A beautiful bundle of grenades, the damage there, like everything is looking fine. The only thing we need to do now is the ground plane, right? Like we need to have like a little bit of a ground plane, and we need to have a texture that's a tileable texture, right? Because I don't want to like model a whole thing here for the ground. So I'm gonna show you here a little trick. Let me see, how can we? Okay, I'm just gonna say it. I'm gonna use Substance Source because it's great. But I know that not everyone is subscribed to Substance Source, so let me just log in real quick. Substance Source is the paid version of Substance. I know most of my students only have like the student version. But once you're an indie guy, you can download or you can subscribe to the monthly. Why is it not working? I hate logins, man. I always forget. So many sites, so many pages, and you're bound to forget one of the passwords, right? And I need to write every single time here. There we go. Okay. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna go to the ground option. I'm just gonna look for a nice ground to use. Like this rough muddy looks good. It's a little bit shiny, and the grenades are not wet, so maybe not the ideal. This it's perfect, I think. Yeah, this one's perfect. 2x2, that's fine. So I'm just gonna download the SVSR. Oh, so you can see it's a heavy SVSR. But that's fine. We're gonna get some. It's because of the presets. Now, if you don't have Substance Source, I can recommend doing Substance Share, which is like the friendly version, like free version of Substance Source. Substance Share it's a forum, so users can upload their materials, the materials that they create, and there's some good materials there. It's not loading right now because all of my band is being used for this thing. Just give it a second. There we go. So you're also gonna find some nice materials here. There's not as many, but there's some good ones. So for instance, this red pebbles, it's fine. And if you just browse, you might be able to find some nice materials here. So Substance Share. You could also just do a material in Substance Painter and export it as a tileable texture. I'm just gonna keep this here. Now I'm gonna make sure that all of this share the same size. This is gonna be important. So let's go for 5,000. So it's completely proportional, and there's a plugin inside of Maya, which is the one that we're gonna be using. And this plugin is called the Substance plugin. So I'm just gonna load all of the elements here. And the Substance plugin is really cool because what this will allow us to do is we're gonna be able to grab this thing, or the material that we have. Actually gonna get it into our source images folder right here. Let's get onto the grenade so that we have everything clean there. And now if I get into the hypershade, let's clean this up. I can press Tab key, write Substance, and I can grab this Substance node texture. And here I can load the substance, see? And now when I load the substance, I can go down here and say, hey, I want this guy to create me an Arnold shader network. I just click create shader network and it automatically will create everything that we need. It's the material. I'm just gonna call this M dirt road. And the color, the roughness, the normal, everything is connected in the way it should be connected with no issues whatsoever. It's even connecting a displacement map. Let's see if it works. For the displacement, I'm gonna do something here. I'm gonna go into the plane. I'm gonna go into the options here. And on the Arnold, I'm gonna say subdivision. It's gonna be cat mod Clark. I'm gonna do, let's start with 2 iterations. Let's see how that goes. Save this in real quick, just to make sure that this does not crash. We need to close this and then open it up again. And let's give it a render. So, of course, nothing is happening. Why? Because I forgot to assign the material. Right click, assign existing material. We assign this new material here. And when we hit render, all the textures need to be, of course, converted. Now, you can see here that one of the issues is the scale. So, the displacement is working, but the scale is not. So, I'm going to go back into the outliner here. Go into my place 2D texture and let's increase the repeat UVs. Let's say 10 times. So let's start with 10. A tolerable texture is texture that you can repeat and you're gonna get this sort of things. Okay, it is working, but I'm not sure where it's pulling the ground up to. Seems to be pulling it fairly high. Let me minimize this. The displacement, yeah, there you go. You can see. So the displacement is pushing this thing really high. So there's 2 options here. We can go to the displacement options down here. And we can change here on the displacement shader, we can change the scale. Let's say like 0.1. And that way we should see less of a distortion. There we go. I do think that the scale is a little bit low still, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna, whoa. Let's go here. Let's say 30 and 30. Let's give it another go. There we go, that looks a little bit more like what I'm going for. And in this case, rather than having issues with the scale, I'm just gonna move this down so that when we render, this thing is where it's supposed to be. As you can see, we do have the nice distortion there. Now, one thing I'm gonna do, or one thing we could do, is I can grab this plane and we're gonna say mesh smooth to get more. Let's do one more smooth to get more vertices, and then I'm gonna grab the plane, go into vertex mode. And with soft selection turned on, I can just give this thing like a little bit of variation, right? So when we do this, it looks a little bit heavier. I think we need to delete history, and let's give it another go. Okay, let's stop this. Oh, please don't crash, Maya, don't crash. We're doing really well. We're almost there. I think it's gonna crash. I mean, it's fine. We did save before this happened. One way to know if things are gonna crash or not, go into the task manager, and if you see the app and it's moving both on the memory and on the CPU, then you might be able to recover it. I'm gonna pause the video real quick, guys, just to make sure if this thing recovers or not, and then I'll continue. We're about to wrap up, so this is just gonna be a jump for you. Okay, so Maya did crash. It was expected. Let's do this, guys. I don't want to rush this thing, so I of course want to teach you and show you all of this very cool tricks and stuff. I'm gonna see if we can plan the displacement lecture in the next couple of weeks, because displacement is really important, and people sometimes struggle with that, like getting a character from ZBrush and getting some proper displacement. So I'm just gonna get like a traditional render here, not a traditional, but more like a studio render. So let's set our project again real quick, and let's open our scene. We did save before the crash, so we should have most of the stuff ready. Let's see. It's right before the ground plane thing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grab this. I'm actually just gonna render like this. I'm just gonna do a little bit of a close-up here, which is the thumbnail that you're probably seeing on our video. And I'm just gonna render using Arnold Render, of course. And let me just show you how to clean the render a little bit more, because that's another thing that people sometimes struggle with, which is the cleanup of the render. So now I think we can actually go for like a lower angle here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab all the, let's go to perspective view. I'm gonna grab this back faces here, just bring them up. This guys, bring them up. This guys, bring them up. Number 3. Now we can jump back here into Arnold render view, and let's render. And yeah, so let's go to our camera. There we go. So this is the very nice traditional render. So as I mentioned, I'm using the what's the word? I'm using the GPU to render. So this is going to be giving me a little bit of a faster render. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump here into my render settings, Arnold render. You're gonna go into adaptive sampling. You're gonna turn this on. So adaptive sampling basically tells Arnold to keep rendering until it hits this thresholds, a maximum of 20 samples per pixel, pretty much, and 0.015 a noise. So that usually is a very, very good number. You're going to see how this image gets cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. That should give you a very nice result. And once you incorporate like all the very nice textures that we just did inside of Substance, well, you're going to be able to get this very nice effect looking. As I mentioned, I don't wanna just like ignore what we're doing with the ground. I'm gonna show you how to do it properly with enough time and not rushing things, because we're already past the 1 hour mark, and I know that it's of course a huge commitment. So first, thank you guys for sticking around for so long and learning all of these very cool tricks. We're gonna keep adding more videos into the YouTube page, so keep yourselves updated. Make sure you check, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. The comments are always welcome. I try to read most of them, and make sure that I'm covering all the things that you want to learn. So check out our premium courses as well if you want to learn more about texturing. All of the ZBrush courses that I teach, as well as the Maya one, have a little bit of substance into them. So we do explore this and even more techniques inside of those courses. So make sure to check them out. And well, that's it for today, guys. Very nice render that we did this time around, and I'll see you back on the next one. Bye-bye.